Hi everybody and welcome back. It's been a while since we did a video. Nice to see everybody again and thanks for watching. As always, there's been a bit of silence over the last couple of months, but there's been a lot going on behind the scenes and I'll try and cover some of that in another video coming soon. Anyway, today I wanted to talk about a Space Invaders cocktail table. So about a week ago we got contacted by somebody asking could we fix a Taito two-player cocktail table Space Invaders. Now what's more interesting is this is a colour one, which you don't see that often. A reasonably rare version of it. So it's a standard cocktail table that you sit down at like all the other ones that you've seen, and if you're a little bit older than I am, then it's, the ones that you used to play in the pub, which is, what everybody who's a little bit older than me says that's what they remember arcade games being. And we got contacted and said that the player 2 controls were sticking. And so we went through remote diagnostics and things like that. So, can we help you out? Yeah, okay. So the guy dropped the cocktail table off. So what you're going to see in this video is us diagnosing and repairing it. So hope you enjoy. As always, thanks very much for watching. So a gentleman got in touch with us about a Space Invaders cocktail table. This is quite a rare to find colour version of it. It's got an interesting fault with it, with player 2. So when the screen flips over, if I can stop the glare, the guy starts in the corner down there, and it's always going left. When I let go of the stick, the base is always going back towards the left of the screen. So we'll dig out the schematics, get a little scope out and see what's going on. And here we have the Space Invaders board on the bench now. We've opened it out. It's one of these 3-layer Taito Space Invaders 2 boards. And what I've got is everything's running. And I've discovered that the board's not actually the problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to coin it and start a game. So coin is pin 13. So I've got on here, I've got some wires clipped on, and I can get basically to pin 13, which is 10, 11, 12, 13, that. So it now says, and I know it's upside down. Press player 1 to start. And P2 start. If I look over here, player 2 start is N, which is underneath 12. There you go. So player 1 has now started. Apologies for that. Right, and that's player 1 upside down. And it's not supposed to be that way around. There must be some kind of inversion. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find the switches for player 2, which is 16, 17, 18. And I'm going to wait for it to die. And you saw before, right, so there we go, we've died, and it'll say now say play 2, and the screen will invert. So that works. And player 2 right is pin 16, which is that one. So I'm going to put myself under the base, and I don't start going left. So there's a problem somewhere in the cabinet itself on the wiring. And as you can tell, all the sounds and everything work. So, well, that's that problem. So we'll investigate we'll add the rest of the control wires and everything to this loom. Anthony's going to do that tomorrow because it's knocking off time. And then we'll look at that. So it's not the board. This is one where it's not the PCB. We'll look into the cabinet. That one's going to be interesting. Right, back on the Space Invaders. A couple of days have passed. Anthony keeps ducking out the way of me passing the camera out even anywhere remotely near him. He says he's got the perfect face for being behind the camera, which I don't agree with. But anyway, so here is the Space Invaders board, and here is the table. What we decided to do as a next step was finish off the bench loom for it. So should anybody else bring us a Space Invaders 2-layer style board, 3-layer style board, we can look at it for them. We're already set up and it's a quick turnaround time. Making the looms is what takes a long time. Anyway, what I wanted to point out, instead of waffling, is that these old boards require an off-board reset circuit, power on reset. So Anthony's going to now power the game on without the reset circuit connected. And that's what happens. And it will just stick there forever and ever and ever. So I'll switch it off. So the board has no on-board power on reset. And the reason for that is that the there we go, 80 CPU that's on this board requires a high to low transition. So when you power on, the reset pin is high, and then you have to drag it to ground after a few clock cycles after it's done its setup, which literally takes, you know, a few clock cycles for it to do that. But without the reset, you get the sort of like blocks and garbage that you saw there. So what we've done is built a reset circuit on a breadboard. And what this reset circuit is power from 5 volts and a capacitor and a resistor. And literally all it is a delayed timer. So on Vanguard, which we did a few weeks ago, which I didn't get around to filming, we had a reasonably similar circuit using a 555 timer. This is a much simpler circuit. What we've got is we've got power coming from the loom over here at 5 volts and ground, going to an inverter chip over here. And at the same time, we're also sending the 5 volts through a current limiting resistor, a 10k. And then that also then goes in series to a capacitor, a 22016, which goes to ground. And tied in the middle of that, so between the resistor and the capacitor, is then the output goes into the input of the inverter. The output of the inverter then comes all the way along this wire over here, down to reset, which is that pin there. What will happen is 5 volts will go into the resistor, through the resistor, to the leg of the capacitor will start to charge up. So what you'll see is it'll be nothing at the inverter, so it'll be ground and it'll build up and build up and build up. I don't know if you can get the scope probe back on that real quick, can you? That'd be really cool if you can. You'll need to ground it, I think. Cool. So what we'll do is we'll show you what the scope does. So this is the input pin, is it?
Yeah.
Yes, right. So I'm just going to point at the scope. So if you switch it on, what you'll see is it does that. So it jumps up and then falls back down slowly. All right, switch off. Whereas, so that's basically taking enough time for the input of the inverter on this board here to fill up to past the point where it will switch over and become a high signal that the chip recognises. So at that point, the output is always high when it's first powered up. When the input gets high enough, about sort of 2.7, 2.8 volts, that kind of thing, it's enough for the inverter to then drop its output down low, which is what the board wants, and therefore the CPU says, "Hey, I finished resetting. I'm going to start being a CPU now," and it works. And if Anthony now switches the power on for the game,
Get the scope at the same time.
Scope at the same time. There you go, and there's your reset circuit. So that was a good little learning curve, and it's upside down. There must be some reason. I believe that we built this based on the fact that the anode cap over here is on the left. So it's on the left here on the monitor, but that doesn't seem to be the right case. So I reckon somebody reversed the yoke on this and did it that way. So realistically, that monitor should be flipped the entire other way, which is, you know, quite a common thing. There's no flip pins that we can find on it, but the inversion works as it should if we do a two-player game. We've got the entire bench harness now set up. I think that's enough for that. We'll build that little breadboard circuit onto the back of the jammer converter over there on our loom side of it, so it's permanent. And then we'll fold the board up properly, put it back in its cage, put it back in the cab, and give it a play test. In that last part, I was trying to explain how the reset circuit worked, and I'm just not happy with how that explanation went in the video itself. So what I've done is I've done a diagram, which I've got here. Yeah, there we go. Yes, you can see that. Brilliant. So this diagram explains, and I'll pop it up full screen as well whilst we go through it, but this diagram explains how the reset circuit on the Taito Space Invaders and pretty much any reset circuit works. I mean, there's some complications to it if you look at the schematics, but in general, this is how it works. So it's effectively a small timer, and what happens is you need a small amount of time before the CPU can be active. So when you first power it up, it's got garbage in all of its registers and on the memory address lines and things like that. So it needs a few seconds. When I say seconds, it needs a little timer, and it's literally nanoseconds to set itself up, zero everything out, put itself to where it should be, and then say, okay, let's go. And how that works is through a reset timer. So what you have is at the top of the diagram, you have what you have at the top of the diagram, up here, when I get it the right way up, what you have up here is ground, 5 volts, and at the bottom you have ground. So what I've tried to do is try to simplify this circuit as best as I can for how we did it. This isn't the be all and end all, they can be different to this, but in general this is kind of a reset theory tutorial. So what you've got is 5 volts, it goes through a resistor, hits a capacitor, and the capacitor goes to ground, the negative side of it. And what's happening is the 10k resistor is providing some resistance to charging the capacitor up. The capacitor then acts as a small timer. It won't discharge because there's nothing going dropping the voltage to ground at that point, switching the input voltage off to allow it to then discharge into the circuit. There's a way you could make a flip-flop sort of flashing LED circuit out of this, but we'll not go into that. What we do then is we use an inverter, because the CPU on the Z80 wants to be in reset when it's low and then active, and then the CPU itself is active high. So on the inverter chip, the input pin is low to start with, so the output pin will be high. The capacitor starts to charge up, so you'd see voltage starting to slowly increase on the pin 1, the input pin, up until it gets to the threshold voltage, which allows the gate to turn over. And once it hits the threshold voltage, the gate on the output gate will go low, because that's exactly what an inverter does. Whatever comes in on the input goes back out on the output. So that's in a nutshell what it does, and the output of that goes to a reset. Now, you've heard me talk about Z80s and 6502s before, and though you could easily switch this circuit around by joining the output to another input and then taking the output from that. Now, I'm not going to explain all that. It's time for you to do a little bit of research and learning on your own, but you can effectively use the same inverter chip, the exact same timer charge pump circuit to reset a Z80 or a 6502 or an 8080 or pretty much any vintage CPU. This doesn't. The theory is probably similar on modern CPUs, but we're not going to go into that. I have no interest in modern day CPUs in that respect. I mean, apart from building a PC maybe now and again and using it, but it's all component stuffing. So, buy a board, stick a CPU, stick some RAM in. There's no real component level engineering, because they don't want you to do that anymore. They want you to all be box builders and boring shifters. So anyway, that's a sort of interlude explanation of how the reset circuit works, hopefully better than what I explained it in the video. So anyway, we'll go back to the video and we'll wrap up. He's put our reset block onto here and hidden it nicely under a bit of insulation, so that all works now. So power up and it resets the board. Perfect. Right, let's put it all back together, put it on the cab, and everything should work. Still on with the Space Invaders board. We put it back in the machine over here and discovered that the fault was still there after we fixed it. So what we're going to do is power the machine up here on the bench, and we'll start poking around with it on there. So if I credit it up, 2-player game, start the game up, right, and then get myself killed for the first player. So yeah, there you go, I'm dead. So player 2. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to push right. It'll be at the bottom of the screen because it flips over. So when I push right, let go, it'll drift back to the left. The good news is I've actually found that there is a problem. Well, that's fantastic. We have a set of schematics over there on the screen. We're going to start having a bit of a poke around here on the board. It's all on this top board around here somewhere, and my suspicion is this chip here, that one of the inputs is stuck. So that's what we're going to do next. Now then, we've made some progress. We have tracked the problem down, as I suspected, and I can reproduce the problem quite easily by going like that. Gets the thing booted up, start a 2-player game. So it was kind of an intermittent fault, was this. So there's player 1 at the top of the screen. I want to get him killed. That will happen any second. There we go. Sometimes the explosion sound doesn't work, but we'll look into that. Right, so now if I go like that, yeah, you see it's not we've kind of got it in a fix at the moment, but if I go like, there you go. Yeah, and what the problem seems to be, so you could see that it's clear and I wasn't pressing the joystick, but the problem seems to be this dip switch pack here. being slightly faulty. And on the schematic, if I go over here, on there, you can see that the left 2-player comes in at pin 17, the header goes through an inverter, that was all working fine, and then goes through this dip 6 here. And what was happening is that was partially open, causing a strange signal to appear here at 12. So every time this chip here got pulled, which is by the looks of it is a muck, because I haven't looked at what the actual chip is, but whatever chip that is, when it's getting pulled and said, hey, transfer what you've got on this side over onto that side, it was always getting a 1 signal to the other side. So Ant is over there at the solder station. Don't worry, I've only got his arms in. At the solder station, because I don't have any perfectly clean ones of these in stock, but I have some good ones off some late model boards. We'll get some in stock, and we'll replace this this dip switch bank, because that seems to be the culprit. Isn't that a beautiful sound? There you go, there's player 2, and it no longer drifts back to the left. I'll just play player 1 just for a second again. There you go, the explosion sound's definitely there. It must be something to do with our bench harness, that's quite common. So there you go, Ant's going to let go. See, it doesn't drift. So what we did was we fitted a brand new dip switch block to the board, and that seems to have resolved the problems for us. So I'll just do that. Alright, let myself get killed again. So yeah, one that part that got dead. So if I'll just wiggle this dip switch pack, and hopefully if you go out and move to underneath one of the bases, let go. Yeah, I would say that yeah, it's not longer moving. I would say that's a fix. Right, that's it. That wraps it up for this Space Invaders cocktail. It's been quite an interesting one, that, and a component that do fail, but you don't see them fail quite as often as the logic chips around them. Oh well, that's it. Till the next video. See you later. Hope you enjoyed that. Just wanted to come back and say at the end, thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe if you like this kind of thing, and don't forget to share it. Give it the old thumbs up as well, because that definitely helps us, does a thumbs up on YouTube. If you've got any questions you want to ask or anything like that, please use the comments below. And don't forget that we have a website where you can get in touch direct with us, because we don't monitor the YouTube video mailbox, because they make it hard for you to get at. They want you to use Google Plus, and we don't like Google Plus. Alright, so till the next video, which there will be more coming soon. We have a stack that are lined up from before Christmas still that we haven't released. Please keep watching, and we will see you all very soon.